Hello all, hope you're doing well today. Today we're covering its chapter 17 and its facility and event impact and legacy. Here we go. So in this chapter, we will define and differentiate economic impact as well as identify the facility costs and public and private financing trends for professional sport in the United States, and also be able to identify the primary variables of economic analysis in sport and describe how it can potentially be misused. Let's begin with a look at some of the most iconic and expensive sports stadiums around the world. Wembley Stadium in London cost approximately $1.25 billion, making it one of Europe's most expensive stadium projects. Moving over to the United States, the AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas, home to the Dallas Cowboys, woohoo, came in at around $1.3 billion. And Yankee Stadium in New York, one of the most recognized names in baseball, cost $1.5 billion to construct. And the MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey, currently holds the title as the most expensive with a staggering cost of $1.6 billion. These figures naturally lead us to ask, is it worth it? To answer that question, we need to examine both the economic and non-economic factors. From job creation and tourism to community pride and urban development, the true value of a sports facility goes far beyond just the price tag. As we move through the chapter, we'll dive in deeper into the impact and legacy these massive investments can have on cities, fans, and the sports world as a whole. Let's take a closer look at how much has actually been spent on sports facilities in the United States, focusing specifically on the big four sports leagues, the NFL, NHL, NBA, and MLB. Since 1990, facility investment costs across these leagues have totaled just over $36.8 billion. Starting with the NFL, all 32 teams have either built a new facility or undergone major renovations since 1990, totaling over $13.8 billion in investments. And the NHL, 23 out of the 30 U.S.-based franchises have significantly renovated or constructed new arenas, with a combined cost of $5.66 billion. And the NBA has seen $6.45 billion invested in U.S. arenas since 1990, impacting 27 of the 29 American teams. And finally, Major League Baseball. 100% of the MLB teams in the U.S. have either built a new stadium or completed major renovations since 1990. The city of Atlanta alone constructed 2 stadiums for the Braves during this period. These figures reflect a massive national commitment to sports infrastructure and raise important questions about who pays, who benefits, and how these investments shape cities and communities. So what does economic impact analysis really mean? In the broadest sense, this type of analysis looks at how a change or disruption, whether it's climatological, environmental, physical, or another kind, affects an economic system. The goal is to measure and quantify those effects, helping us understand the broader implications of such changes. But when we bring this into the world of sport, the focus shifts. Here, economic impact is specifically defined as the net economic change in a host community that results from spending attributed to a sport event or facility. In simpler terms, it's about asking what financial benefits or losses does a community experience because of a sporting event or a new facility. This includes everything from increased tourism and job creation to local business growth and city tax revenue. This analysis helps communities make more informed decisions when investing in sports infrastructure or bidding to host major events. When we conduct an economic analysis in the context of sport, we're essentially trying to answer one question. How does a sport event or facility affect the local economy? And there are 3 primary ways we measure this impact. The first is we look at how much new spending or revenue the event or facility brings into the host community. This includes things like ticket sales, hotel bookings, restaurant spending, and local transportation. Next, we analyze whether individual income levels in the community have increased. Are people making more money because of the event? Maybe they've picked up extra shifts, overtime, or higher paying opportunities tied to the event or facility. And finally, we evaluate how many new jobs are being created. These might be temporary roles like event staff or more permanent roles such as facility management, maintenance, or local business support. Together, these three areas give us a clear picture of the economic footprint left by a sport event or facility. When we talk about the economic ripple effect of a sport event or facility, we're not just looking at a one-time boost. The impact is cyclical, flowing through the community in multiple rounds of spending. These are categorized into three types of impact. The first is direct impact. This is the initial injection of money, revenues that are generated directly from the event. It includes spending by non-local participants and spectators on things like hotels, food, transportation, and event tickets. Then there's the indirect impact. This is the second wave. It includes purchases made by local businesses to support the initial demand. For example, a hotel may buy more linens or hire a local laundry service due to increased occupancy. And the third is the induced impact, which is the third wave of spending by local residents who earn extra income due to the event. Think of someone who worked extra shifts at a restaurant during the event and then spends their earnings locally, maybe on groceries, entertainment, or services. If we look at the economic impact analysis variables, there are benefit drivers. These represent the positive contributions to the local economy, such as new local spending. This is money that's brought in from non-local attendees or tourists. Then there's increased local spending, which is a boost in spending by residents during the event, such as more dining out, shopping, and entertainment. And then the job creation. Now this, again, could be short-term or long-term employment opportunities related to the event or the facility. And then tax revenue. This is additional sales, income, and hospitality taxes that are generated for the local government. And then there are intangible benefits, such as enhanced community pride and global exposure and an improved city image or branding. And then there are cost drivers. These are the potential downsides or limitations of the economic return, such as crowding out of visitors. Regular tourists or locals avoid the area due to congestion or price hikes. Leakages. Spending that leaves the local economy, for example, when event profits go to out-of-town vendors or franchises. And then opportunity costs. So what else could the city have done with the time, land, or money spent on the event? Could it have gone to schools, healthcare, or infrastructure? Understanding these variables helps decision makers balance excitement with economics when planning sports events and facilities. Let's take a look at the economic impact analysis, looking at the key formulas. Formula 1 looks at total visitor spending, or TVS. So TVS is equal to the out-of-town visitors, or OTV, multiplied by the average spending per day, or ASD, per visitor, and multiply that by the number of days the event lasts, or ND. For example, if 10,000 visitors attend a 3-day event and spend $150 per day, then your TVS, or total visitor spending, equals 10,000 times $150 multiplied by 3. That equals $4.5 million. See how it happens? And Formula 2 looks at direct spending. Now your direct spending is equal to the total administrative operations, or TAO, and this is your event operations, your staffing, and your logistics, and it adds to the total visitor spending that we got from Formula 1. So let's continue with the previous example where total visitor spending was $4.5 million. And let's say the total administrative operations costs for the event, covering event operations, staffing, and logistics, are $1.2 million. So using the formula DS for direct spending is equal to TAO or TAO, the total administrative operations, equals $1.2 million plus total visitor spending, which we know is $4.5 million. Your direct spending would be $5.7 million. This means that it's associated, that $5.7 million is associated with the event, reflecting both operational and visitor-based economic contributions to the host community. Direct spending reflects the total immediate financial outlay generated by the event. Now, Formula 3 looks at the total economic impact, or TEI, and you can see it's equal to direct spending from Formula 2 and multiplied by the regional multiplier, which captures how money circulates in the local economy. So, for example, we found in the last example, we found that direct spending equals $5.7 million. Let's assume that the regional multiplier is 1.6, which reflects the ripple effect of money recirculating through the local economy. Using the formula TEI, which is total economic impact, that which is direct spending multiplied by your regional multiplier. And so we know that direct spending was $5.7 million, and we're going to multiply that by 1.6. That equals $9.12 million. This means the total economic impact of the sport event on the host community is $9.12 million, taking into account both the direct spending and the multiplier effect throughout the local economy. Now, a regional multiplier greater than 1 indicates that money is being spent and respent within the community, amplifying the original impact. According to a white paper by the NASC, spending multipliers can range from 1.3 to 1.85, depending on the population size of the host community. And that was from Risch in 2007. While the three formulas discussed provide a basic framework for calculating spending in an economic impact analysis, a comprehensive analysis must also account for income and employment effects to capture the full economic impact. Now, oftentimes there are misapplications in economic impact analysis. There is a misrepresentation of the employment multiplier, meaning that it overstates the number of jobs created by assuming every dollar of spending produces new employment, without accounting for job type, duration, or displacement of existing jobs. It also uses fudged multipliers, inflating those regional multipliers beyond reasonable or evidence-based values to exaggerate the projected economic benefits. And then there's the omission of opportunity cost, which is failing to consider what alternative projects or investments could have been funded with the same resources used for the sport event or facility. And only accounting for benefits and not the cost, presenting only the positive economic outputs of revenue, jobs, and taxes while ignoring the expenses, the debt service, the subsidies, or environmental social costs associated with the event. There are also biases associated with the economic impact analysis. The first of those is a narrow perspective bias, and this occurs when the analysis is limited to a single viewpoint, only considering benefits to the host city, resulting in the omission of broader or hidden costs and outcomes. Another bias is the cost measurement omission. And this arises when certain expenses, such as infrastructure upgrades, security, or environmental costs, are excluded to favor a more positive outcome. And then there's the double counting bias, which happens when a specific impact or value, such as indirect spending or job creation, is unintentionally counted multiple times, inflating the total effect. Let's talk about the multiplier effect. When money is spent on an event, facility, or purchase, it doesn't just disappear. Instead, it continues to flow through the economy, creating a ripple effect that impacts the local community. This ongoing cycle of spending is known as the multiplier effect. Essentially, the money spent initially is recirculated in the local economy, often being spent multiple times by different individuals or businesses. However, calculating the exact impact of these multiple rounds of spending can be tricky. The precise flow of funds is difficult to determine, so we use multipliers and economic impact analyses to estimate this effect. These multipliers vary based on the geographic region and the size of the community involved, making them tailored to reflect the specific local conditions. Understanding the multiplier effect helps us appreciate how spending on an event or investment can have a much broader impact on the economy than it might initially have seemed. Evaluating public investment in sports facilities requires a comprehensive analysis of its overall value to the community. While public funding remains a common approach, especially for civic or community-based projects, many sports organizations also explore private financing or hybrid models that combine both private and public sources. Historically, sports facilities were primarily funded through private investment until the 1960s, when a shift toward public funding began. According to Schisler and Kim in 2013, today's projects rely on a mix of funding strategies, each with distinct advantages and disadvantages that must be evaluated in context. So Table 17.7 outlines these common approaches, which include public funding, which is sourced from government grants, bonds, or taxes, often used for facilities with broad public benefit. Private funding includes investments from companies or individuals, typically in exchange for ownership or revenue sharing rights. Public-private partnerships, or PPP, are joint ventures that leverage both public and private contributions to reduce the financial risk and share benefits. And debt financing, which involves borrowing funds through loans or bonds that must be repaid with interest over time. And equity financing. This raises capital by offering ownership stakes, allowing investors to share in the facility's success or failure. The choice of funding depends on factors such as the project's scale, expected return on investment, community impact, and stakeholders' risk tolerance. Illustrating these methods, the FedEx Forum in Memphis stands as a successful example of public funding. Built in 2001 to relocate the Vancouver Grizzlies, the $250 million publicly funded arena now generates an estimated $233 million in annual economic impact and supports over 1,300 full-time jobs. On the private side, the Minnesota Vikings Stadium, which opened in 2016, was partially financed through a syndicate of loans from Goldman Sachs, U.S. Bank, and Bank of America, following the San Francisco 49ers' successful use of bank loan syndication to build Levi's Stadium. The rest of the Vikings project was funded by the state of Minnesota and the city of Minneapolis. As Kaplan in 2013 notes, such private loans require structured repayment with interest over a defined term. In addition to major investments, sports organizations may also pursue private grants from athletic associations like United States Soccer or the U.S. Tennis Association, as well as corporate sponsors. These options are often better suited for smaller scale or community-focused facilities, but still provide meaningful support within a broader funding strategy. Massive investments cities make in building iconic sports facilities like Wembley, AT&T Stadium, and MetLife. These projects raise important questions about economic return, community benefit, and long-term legacy. Environmental impact analysis helps measure these outcomes by calculating new spending. These analyses can be misleading if not done correctly. Therefore, misused multipliers, overlooked costs, or biased perspectives oftentimes occur. By understanding both the benefits and the pitfalls of economic analysis, we are better equipped to critically evaluate sport investments and advocate for responsible spending and appreciate the broader role of sport plays in shaping our communities. And that is all that I have for you today. I look forward to talking with you again in part 2, where we'll be talking more about event legacy. Have a good day.